And we are live, guys. Welcome to another live stream from Men of High Value channel. My name is Joseph Darling. Today we're going to talk about 5 ways that you can cut your spending, because that's something that many people struggle to do in this consumption world we live in. So, number 1, cut your credit cards. Okay? Now, yes, it is true that there are some rich people who recommend credit cards. And the only reason why they actually do that is because they are disciplined and they never pay interest on any credit cards ever. Okay? And they pay it off in full every single month. Okay? But until you come to that point where you can actually do that, where you are disciplined, and you are actually masculine enough to do that. Okay, femininity wants to spend. Masculinity knows where their limits are, and they are disciplined about them. Until you get there, cut your credit cards in half. You will always be able to get a credit card, a new one, in the future anyway, so just cut it up, never use it again, and just sayonara. Okay? That's number 1. Because if you do that, then you actually only have your money to spend. You don't have anyone else's money to spend. Including here is to choose to not borrow from people. Okay? Unless you're in a really, really tight jam, which you should never be in, you shouldn't really borrow from people. Okay? You have to keep your promises, and the more people you borrow from, the less able you are to actually pay them back, because you forget who you owe money to unless they remind you. And that's a very vicious cycle and not a very wise relationship skill to have. How to manage who do I owe money to and how can I pay them back and when and they remind me. That's horrific to live like that. Okay? It's terrible. Get out of it. Never borrow from people if you struggle to pay them back immediately or according to a plan that you guys have actually set up in place. Alright? If you've scheduled it and you know you're going to pay them back, of course, then, you can help each other out as friends. But right now you're trying to cut your spending, okay? So cut your credit cards and stop borrowing from people, all right? Number 2, decide in advance what you will and will not spend money on. It's called budgeting. Very, very few people do it. But at the same time, very few people actually achieve their dreams and goals, all right? 3% write down their dreams and goals, and guess what? 3% pretty much are the ones who achieve their dreams and goals. So maybe there's some correlation there. It's kind of like only 3% people are successful. Well, there's very few people who actually have and set a budget. So maybe that should be a wise thing to do as well. I totally recommend it. And you've got so many different ways that you can do that these days. So many apps, so like banks even offer some ways that you can budget your money. But just get started, start tracking how much you spend, and then eventually you'll be able to budget, alright? If you just track for 2 or 3 months what you're actually spending money on, eventually you kind of know how much you spend on each category, and now you can set a realistic budget. And then stick to it. Alright? It's kind of like when you wake up in the morning, you need to have decided in advance that you would wake up at a specific time. Because if you haven't decided in advance, guess what? The bed becomes really comfortable and you just want to stay there, right? Or if you wait with the decision point until the time when you're supposed to go to the gym, that's not going to work. You got to decide in advance when you're not in the moment where your emotions can decide. You've got to decide at an earlier point than that so that it actually happens. When you've made a decision, there's nothing stopping you. And part of that is also protecting your salary from yourself, right? We're trying to cut our spending here. So what do I mean by that? Well, basically, if your money that comes from your job comes directly to the account where you spend money, then you're not protecting yourself. Very often I hear about people having a Friday beer. That's kind of like a normal thing in Norway, where basically, oh, you finish your week and now you go out and spend your money. Or you get your money on your account and then you go out and spend it immediately when you've received it. That's a terrible habit to have. Alright, what I would recommend is that when you get your salary into an account that's not where you spend your money. And in order for you to do that, you actually have to contact your job and then get them to change the account number that you get your salary on. But I would recommend that you actually take the time to do that and set up a different account for your salary, and an account where you can't just easily transfer money over. Alright? It's critical that you do that if you struggle to be disciplined in cutting your spending. Because then it's part of deciding in advance what you're going to spend money on. Because if you get it directly and you start spending it immediately, then boom, boom, boom. And the money has already left the building. Alright, so number 3 is to pay yourself first. I repeat it again. Pay yourself first. How many people do it? Only the ones who want to get rich and only the ones who already are rich. You gotta pay yourself first. How much do you pay yourself first? If you've never done it, just do it right now. If you've got some money in your account, just transfer some money into your investment account. Simple. It could be 100 kroners if you've never done it before. Or it could be 1,000 kroners. Or it could be 10% when you get your salary. Or it could be up to 50% when you get your salary. And you pay yourself first so that you can bring on a huge team of businesses. Or a business. Or anything that you want to invest in to help you make more money. Making money is a team effort. You don't just do that on your own. You're just one person. You got to bring thousands of people to help you build your income. That's a lot wiser way to look at it. And number 4, it's critical that you make a prioritized list of your creditors. Alright? Number 1 most important creditor is you. That's us. And that was point number 3, paying yourself first. And the next one is your physiological needs, if I said that correctly. Housing. I need a place to stay. I gotta prioritize it. And I gotta set aside money for it every single month. It's critical. Number 2, I need food to eat. Yes, I could spend half of what I'm spending on my food budget these days, but that has to do with preparing and thinking in advance and deciding in advance how much you're going to spend on food. But you got to prioritize those two, because if you don't, you're going to spend other people's money. You're going to borrow other people's money for food. Alright? As I also say that about food, you know what? Fasting is very, very healthy. It's very healthy. So you can go one day without food. As long as you drink enough water, you can go a whole day without food. You can actually go 3 days without food, as long as you drink a lot of water, without any consultation from a doctor. If you're going to do beyond that, you need to consult the doctor. But fasting is healthy, and you'll actually lose some pounds at the same time. So anyway, list your creditors, housing and food first, and then you can list in order of importance. You've got electricity, you've got this, you've got, transportation, you got this, and at the end, you might not have enough money for the last creditors. But you know what? It's not a big deal. That will push you to make more money. Because right now, obviously, you're not making enough if you can't pay all your creditors. But fortunately, you've paid yourself first, you've paid your housing, you've paid your food, so you can actually operate consistently and think about ways to make more money. Alright? Make sure that it's other people other than your physiological needs that don't get their money. Okay? Yes, that is also borrowing, but you're only going to do it short time in order for you to get out of the rut that you're in right now. Right? So you're taking one step at a time, and they get their 70 kroners late fee anyway. Alright? So don't care about them. They're going to get their money. But put them at the end of the list, okay? The creditors that are not that important, put them at the end of the list, and guess what? Maybe you don't need their service or product eventually anyway. Now, you'll notice that maybe there won't be much money for traveling. You won't have money for the night out at town. That's fantastic, alright? Because number 5 is spend more time making money. Alright? If you're spending time making money, you won't have time to spend the money. And that's fantastic in the beginning. You don't want your life to continue like that forever, right? But if you keep spending more than what you're making your whole life about making money. That's not a wise life decision. Really. You want your life to be fantastic where you don't have to think about money that much. That's a beautiful way to live, and a way that I absolutely recommend is that you work now and play later. It's a very wise strategy, and you can play so much better when you know there's a bank account there that's going to take care of you for a long period of time. These are the 5 ways that I recommend to cut your spending. This is the Men of High Value channel. My name is Joseph Darling, and I'll see you again tomorrow.